Yeah, thank you for that stall, Sina. It's really windy here, and a gift that Jasmine ordered was delivered. And I didn't want it to blow away, but when I went out to pick it up, the person who delivered it had put a rock on top of it. So they had the same thought, that it's very windy today and they didn't want it to blow away. So good. Hi. It's good to see you all. Yeah, we are here for 7 steps to awakening and out of the stillness. And we're at number 155. That's where we're going to begin today, number 155. And of course, I'm going to begin reading quote 155 from the 7 steps to awakening. And then I'll shift to reading from my journal. So this is what it says in the 7 steps to awakening. Since the ignorant are bound fast to their own false notions, neither the transiency of the world nor the hard blow they suffer in their life is able to awaken them. Since the ignorant are bound fast to their own false notions, neither the transiency of the world nor the hard blow they suffer in their life is able to awaken them. So let's look and see what I wrote in my journal, number 155, and out of the stillness. Awakening requires an opening. One who feels sure about everything cannot be awakened. The illusion accompanied by certainty is like a steel door that keeps awakening locked firmly outside. The door is opened through not knowing. The greater the degree of not knowing, the wider the door swings open. Be willing to not know anything. Let this willingness help you see what you think you know about the world, yourself, and spirituality. See every idea of I know as an obstacle to full self-realization. Let go of every idea of I know and step willingly into complete uncertainty. On Sunday morning of this week, I shared with you all the guidance I was giving for living humility, which really came from the Manual for Teachers, the characteristics of God's teachers. And one of those characteristics was open-mindedness. And I mentioned to you all that the definition of open-mindedness is the empty shell, not knowing anything. And I also told you that Bernadette Roberts, who awoke to the first principle of God, when she was trying to share through one of her books what that first principle of God is, of course, she really couldn't. She said it was a dimension so different from our own that there was nothing that could describe it. But she said the closest she could come to describing it was what it was most like in our dimension is not knowing. Not knowing. That pure openness, that perfect empty shell is what's most like the absolute. I think, well, let's look at what the quote says. I don't want to offend anybody here, but we're just going to look, okay? It says, since the ignorant are bound fast to their own false notions. That's the part I want to look at. Since the ignorant are bound fast to their own false notions. I think we have no idea how bound we are to false notions. I think we have no idea how much I know is in the mind. Just as a simple example, most of us would say that we know our spouse, or we know our child, or we know our parent. And what this is saying is even that is keeping us ignorant of our true self. And you can see that with logic if you just look at it for a moment, because our true self is one essence. We know that much. We may not know exactly what that means, but we know it's one essence. Well, if I can list for you these qualities that my spouse has, or that my child has, that other people don't have, or they have it differently, and thinking I know my child or my spouse, I am not seeing the one essence there. You see how that works? And thinking I know my own family members, I am blocking the vision of the one essence. And that's only a small example of what we think we know. How many of us think we know regarding politics, some of what should happen, what should not happen, what's right, what's wrong? How many of us think we know the best way to spend one's time, for example, the best way to spend our time? How many of us think we know, anything? We could go on and on and on. And what this is saying is that all of that knowing is a mistake. I'm also reminded of the teachings of Inner Ramana. I know y'all are familiar with the message on surrender, where it asks us to ask within about everything. What am I to do now? But what am I to do now also means, how am I to see this? What am I to think? How am I to perceive? How am I to respond? Right? It has this whole list of questions that what am I to do now means. And again, if you look at it, even with logic, you can see that if you're asking within, what am I to do now with everything, then you aren't assuming you know anything. We don't ask when we assume that we know. Would you agree with that? So one of the purposes of surrender is to move us towards that empty shell, towards that perfect unknowing that allows truth realization to occur. So again, my journal says, awakening requires an opening. One who feels sure about everything cannot be awakened. The illusion accompanied by certainty is like a steel door that keeps awakening locked firmly outside. The door is opened through not knowing. The greater the degree of not knowing, the wider the door swings open. Be willing to not know anything. Let this willingness help you see what you think you know. Now, this is an interesting sentence, right? First, it asks us to be willing not to know anything. And then it says, if we genuinely give that willingness, what's going to happen? We're going to start noticing all the stuff we think we know. Right? That's what's going to happen. And so some people would then judge themselves as a failure. They'd say, oh, I gave my willingness not to know. And my God, I think I know so much. But that's bringing all of that into awareness. Right? It wasn't in awareness before. We were walking around thinking we knew it without being aware that we were thinking we knew it. Right? And now it's just showing us over and over and over again all of the things that we think we know. although this often feels, well, A Course in Miracles says, you do not know your advances from your retreats. This feels like a retreat, like a failure, like a slip backwards. I gave my willingness not to know anything. And oh, boy, I sound like a, what's the term for it? A know-it-all. Every time I talk, I can hear myself. I sound like a know-it-all, right? And we think we fell backwards, but actually that's movement forward. That's an advance, because now we're becoming aware of all of the I know that's been going on. And awareness, of course, is the first step to healing something or to letting go of something. So be willing to not know anything. Let this willingness help you see what you think you know about the world, yourself, and spirituality. See every idea of I know as an obstacle to full self-realization. One thing I also shared with you all on Sunday was that my guidance is asking me to follow undefined and uncharted guidance into awakening. Undefined and uncharted guidance. What I am not to do is, based on reading or based on learning from external sources, I am not to say, oh, I know what I need to do. I know I need to meditate for 12 hours a day. That's what Michael Langford says in The Most Direct Means to Eternal Bliss, right? I know, you see? I know, there's an I know. And so my guidance is to follow undefined and uncharted guidance. In other words, I am to accept that I do not know, and then let myself be guided in the moment. See every idea of I know as an obstacle to full self-realization. Let go of every idea of I know and step willingly into complete uncertainty. Uncertainty scares a lot of people, right? Maybe everyone. I don't know why I said a lot of people. I would say, unless you're enlightened, you're scared of uncertainty. I think that's probably a fair statement. So it's funny, if you look at that logically for a moment, why are we scared of uncertainty? Like it's somehow we've equated in our mind that uncertainty means bad. But is that true? Just because we don't know, does that mean it's going to be bad? Why do we have this, like, we make them like synonyms, right? Uncertainty and bad, as if they're the same thing. And that's just something we've made up. So that's something we also want to look at whenever, we want to notice whenever we think we know that uncertainty is bad. Uncertainty is scary. Uncertainty is dangerous. Well, heck, the word uncertainty means we don't know. I mean, the word itself tells us we don't know. So why do we think we know it's bad? Why do we think we know it's dangerous, right? The word itself, by definition, means we don't know. It might be the most magnificent thing that's ever happened, whatever's coming, right? So we also just want to get comfortable with not knowing. Get comfortable with uncertainty. I remember Mooji was telling a story once, and I won't even go into the story. I'm just going to go into what I realized as I was hearing this story. What I realized is it was safe to not know. And when I needed to know, knowing would arise. That's what I realized. And I've held on to that ever since then. It is safe to not know. And when I do need to know, knowing will arise.
Melissa had her hand up.
Oh, okay. Oh, no, she says no.
Well, I need to hear that story right now. And I will look under Mooji and stories. Should I just YouTube that?
No, I'll tell you the story. He was telling a story about his son. His son was looking for a job. And I think his son had 3 different jobs that he was looking at that had made him an offer. And he had to make a decision on by Friday. By Friday, he had to let them know which job he was going to take. And he was all worried about this and going back and forth and looking at the pros and cons. And Mooji said that the advice that he gave his son was, don't even think about it until Friday when you have to make the phone calls. When you have to make the phone calls to let them know, you'll know. Right? That's the story. And so again, what I got out of that story is it's okay. Like if I'm his son and this is Monday, I have to know by Friday. That means I don't have to know today. Today's only Monday. Tuesday, I don't have to know. Wednesday, I don't have to know. Thursday, I don't have to know. If I have to make the phone calls at 8:30, 6 o'clock on Friday morning, I still don't have to know. And by the time I reach out to grab the phone to make the phone calls, I'll know. Right? I don't even have to understand the knowing. I just know, oh, I feel to take this job and not these 2. That's what I'm going to tell them. So that's what I got out of that story. Was it safe to not know? Right? Because I don't need to know. If I don't know, it's because I don't need to. So it's safe to not know. And if I need to know, the knowing will arise. And there are very funny ways that we've practiced that, or I've practiced that. Like my family, for some reason, leaves almost every decision to me. It's just what they do. I guess I'm what they call a natural born leader. I don't know. Like, so where are we going to go eat? What are we going to do today? Well, it's all up to me. And I often don't know, where are we going to go eat? I don't know. I don't even have any feeling whatsoever. So more than once I have said, let's get in the car and start driving. When I know where we're going, I'll tell you. And sure enough, somewhere along the way, I'm like, well, let's go here. It just kind of arises and then we go there. But I'm willing to get in the car and start driving. And there's a certain direction we have to drive no matter where we're going to go, right? To get out of the neighborhood and towards the business area of town. So we can start driving that direction, even though we don't know where we're going to eat, right? And then a feeling with, I don't have to think about it. Just at some point, this feeling arises and I say, hey, let's go here. And that sounds good to everybody. So just kind of a minor example of how I've practiced this. When Ann and I did that retreat this summer, the 5 unexpected pathways to wisdom, the 5th obstacle to wisdom was confusion. And the definition of confusion that I gave during the retreat was this: confusion is thinking you should know when you don't. That's confusion. So if I think I should know where we're going to go eat when I don't know, I feel confused. If I think I should know which job I'm going to take when I don't know, I feel confused. So the way to get out of confusion is just to realize it's okay that I don't know. Confusion completely falls apart then, because confusion is caused by thinking I should know. If I just accept it's okay that I don't know, there can't be confusion. So again, 155, awakening requires an opening. One who feels sure about everything cannot be awakened. The illusion accompanied by certainty is like a steel door that keeps awakening locked firmly outside. The door is opened through not knowing. The greater the degree of not knowing, the wider the door swings open. Be willing to not know anything. Let this willingness help you see what you think you know about the world, yourself, and spirituality. See every idea of I know as an obstacle to full self-realization. Let go of every idea of I know and step willingly into complete uncertainty. See my cup? That's one of the cups that Michael Langford gave to me that day that I visited him. He gave me 2 cups. This is one of them. All right, number 158, starting with the 7 steps to awakening. All thoughts and beliefs lead to sorrow, whereas no thought and no belief are pure bliss. I'm going to stop right there for a moment. Do you see how certainty is full of thoughts and beliefs, and uncertainty, when willingly embraced, is no thought and no belief? Right? So this is saying uncertainty is pure bliss. Think about that. And Bernadette Roberts said that not knowing was the closest thing in our dimension to the absolute, or she used the word divine, to the divine. That's something, don't you think? And the previous quote referred to those who think they know as ignorant. All thoughts and beliefs lead to sorrow, whereas no thought and no belief are pure bliss. Therefore, with the help of the fire of wisdom, vaporize the waters of your beliefs and become peaceful, supremely blissful. Behold the one infinite consciousness. So, this, I just showed you my cup. And for the audio, I'll tell you, it says inquire within, the cup that Michael Langford gave me. This talks about the fire of wisdom. With the help of the fire of wisdom, vaporize the waters of your beliefs. That's really what inquiring within is all about. That's why when, there is some kind of an upset and we go within to look at it, it's like Doreen said in the previous program, unless she writes down her thoughts, she doesn't even know what she's thinking. Right. So we did this at the 5 unexpected pathways to wisdom too. We taught people to write out their thoughts. So you write out your thoughts, and then you let inner wisdom share with you about those thoughts through an inquiry process. And you come to see, I wish I could remember what Doreen said. I think she said, I wish I could remember her exact words, but it was something like, that doesn't even make sense, right? Those thoughts have been walking around believing. And so what happens is you start to vaporize these thoughts as you look at them with wisdom, right? They become less and less and less. This is the power of inquiring within. This is the power of writing them out, inquiring within. You see, they don't even make sense. And they may still show up, but you don't look at them the same way after that, right? And eventually you're vaporizing your beliefs so you can get to that empty shell that is pure bliss. So all thoughts and beliefs lead to sorrow, whereas no thought and no belief are pure bliss. At the college Jasmine went to, they had this, I think it was like a fake tree stump, might even have been a real tree stump, but they had this tree stump in the center of this courtyard where all the kids hung out. And anybody could stand on the tree stump and start, preaching, whether you're preaching religion or whether you're preaching politics, you could get on your soapbox, right? You're allowed to jump up on the tree stump and get on your soapbox. I don't know how they would have felt if I got on my soapbox with this, though, at a university, right? All thoughts and beliefs lead to sorrow, whereas no thought and no belief are pure bliss. I don't know how that would have worked. Therefore, with the help of the fire of wisdom, vaporize the waters of your beliefs and become peaceful, supremely blissful. Behold the one infinite consciousness. So let's go look at my journal, number 158. Inward, inward, inward. The outer world and outer teachings have a role to play. Their role is to keep you fascinated, seeking outwardly. However, every outer road has the same ending, and that is ending itself. Inward, inward, inward. Inner stillness and inner guidance also have a role to play. Their role is to draw you home to yourself, where there is nothing artificial, and so there is no end. Listen inwardly. Follow the guidance of inwardly. Spend a lot of time alone so that the voice of inwardly becomes clear and the center of focus. Likewise, do not spend time in outer activities unless it is so guided by inner wisdom, and then stay tuned inwardly. Now, a few times over my quote teaching career, which has now ended, unquote, a few times over my teaching career, I've heard myself tell certain audiences, whether it was in Pal Talk or whether it was in Zoom here in the sanctuary, you're spending too much time here. And that's a funny thing to say, especially when, you know, I'm the founder of Awakening Together, to be telling people in Awakening Together, you're spending too much time here. You know, it's like trying to put yourself out of business, I guess. But there's a reason for that. It's because I know that what we really need the most is that alone time. If you're here 8 hours, 10 hours a day, if you're here at 5 in the morning, 7 in the morning, you're not alone. See, that's what I see. You're not alone. Doesn't mean you're not getting something out of it. Don't get me wrong. But you would probably get that times 100 by yourself, going within with your inner teacher. And you guys know me, I've always been very consistent about this recommendation. There is nothing like your inner teacher. First of all, anything that anybody else shares with you, anybody, you know, pick a teacher. When they share it with you, it comes out in words and it passes through your mind, which interprets it. A lot of things are misheard immediately. In fact, you know, yeah, I talked about this briefly last week. I mentioned that some teaching of mine had been misspoken, but I commented that often I hear people misquote me, often, all the time. It's like all the time. That's because they heard me. Outside of them, it passed through their mind, and their mind changed it. Now, sometimes the changes are minuscule and unimportant. You know, like I heard someone telling a story that I once told, and this story happened in China, and they had it placed in Egypt, you know. So it didn't matter. But the point is, and this is an important point, that's what the mind always does. When you hear something from the outside, your mind interprets it. I remember Michael Langford called me on this once because he had told me a story, and then he heard me tell the story. I don't know if it's here or in Pal Talk, but he heard me tell the story. I think it was Pal Talk, but it was still Awakening Together. And I told the story. It's the story of the yummy, yummy sandwiches. I don't know if you guys know that story, about how he went to see Krishnamurti, and Krishnamurti basically recommended that that you stay and reflect on the teachings when his speaking ended. But they were serving yummy, yummy sandwiches. And so when the teaching ended, everybody jumped up and ran to get in line for their yummy, yummy sandwiches. And he was the only one that really stayed and reflected. Well, my mind, and this is very innocent, but my mind interpreted that as in an auditorium. And so when I told the story, I threw the auditorium in there. And I said, everybody else went outside to get the yummy, yummy sandwiches. And Michael Langford said, we were already outside. You know, we met outside. In fact, since then I've seen, you know, some of Krishnamurti's videos, and they are often outside, right? Again, a minor thing, unimportant, didn't change the point of the story, but it does make the point that our mind is interpreting whatever we hear from the outside. And sometimes it actually changes the teaching in a way that isn't helpful. When we listen to the inner teacher, it doesn't go through the mind in that way. It's a direct communication. So when we're listening to the inner teacher, the mind doesn't have that opportunity to interpret it and distort it. I remember once this one guy said something about he would prefer that I just read NTI and not teach from it, because when I teach from it, I'm interpreting the teachings. And I said, that may be true when I'm teaching from A Course in Miracles. I said, but that is not true when I'm teaching from NTI. I said, I know what NTI means. Why do I know what NTI means? Because I received it. Right? And when you receive something, there's more than just the words. There's feelings, there's images, there's unspoken knowledge. All of that comes with what you receive from your inner teacher. So you get a more full clarity that you couldn't possibly get from an external teacher. And in fact, that's the whole reason your mind is interpreting it, because it's not a full clarity. And so your mind is there interpreting it, trying to get that full clarity out of it. But what it frequently does is miss a point, distort the teaching, et cetera, et cetera. So although I love that y'all love Awakening Together, and I love that y'all come here, I also love it when you set aside alone time. Just you and your inner teacher. In my humble opinion, that is the most important time of your day. Right? So I'll just read 158 in my journal again. Inward, inward, inward. The outer world and outer teachings have a role to play. Their role is to keep you fascinated, seeking outwardly. However, every outer road has the same ending, and that is ending itself. Inward, inward, inward. Inner stillness and inner guidance also have a role to play. Their role is to draw you home to your true self, where there is nothing artificial, and so there is no end. Listen inwardly. Follow the guidance of inwardly. Spend a lot of time alone. Do you hear that? Spend a lot of time alone. How many of y'all think Buddha spent a lot of time alone? How many of y'all think Jesus spent a lot of time alone? How many of y'all think Ramana Maharshi spent a lot of time alone? How many of y'all think Nisargadatta Maharaj spent a lot of time alone? What do all these guys have in common? Oh, wait, a lot of time alone. Follow the guidance of inwardly. Spend a lot of time alone so that the voice of inwardly becomes clear and the center of focus. Notice this says so that the voice of inwardly becomes clear. That does imply that when you first start spending a lot of time alone, it may not be, right? And I think I've probably told you all this story before, but I'll tell you again. When I was around 10, my brother was around 9, my dad bought a basketball goal and brought it home and hung it up on the garage so that we could play basketball in our driveway. And my brother and I were both so excited. We ran out there and I shot the ball a few times, didn't make a basket, decided I wasn't any good at it and quit. Never played basketball again. Obviously never became good at basketball. My brother shot the ball towards the basket, also didn't make it. He went out there every day after school for as long as mom would let him stay out there, shooting and shooting and shooting. Guess who became a pretty decent basketball player? So it's the same thing with inner wisdom. I think some people, they hear this, they're inspired, right? They say, okay, I'm going to spend some time alone and, nothing happens or not much happens. They do it 2 or 3 days. They figure they're no good at it and they quit. Just like I did with basketball. If that happens to you, just remember my brother. He didn't quit, right? Just remember my brother. He wasn't automatically making baskets, but he went out there every day after school and stayed as long as mom would let him stay, shooting and shooting and shooting. And he finally got to be pretty good. So remember that when your mind is telling you to quit because you're not any good at it. Regina can do it, but you can't, right? That's a familiar story. You ever heard that story? Yeah, I know some of y'all have, because I've heard you tell the story. Regina can do it, but you can't. No, that's not true. Okay. So inward, inward, inward. Inner stillness and inner guidance also have a role to play. Their role is to draw you home to your true self, where there is nothing artificial, and so there is no end. Listen inwardly. Follow the guidance of inwardly. Spend a lot of time alone so that the voice of inwardly becomes clear and the center of focus. Likewise, do not spend time in outer activities unless it is so guided by inner wisdom, and then stay tuned inwardly. Now I'll tell you what this is referring to. A Course in Miracles, was talking to Helen Schuckman, and it has this one lesson that says sickness is a defense against God. Well, I've not been sick hardly at all. I mean, a few sicknesses, but, for the most part, this body, this personality is healthy, both mentally and physically. Always, I've got a really healthy ego. Some people have mental illness. I don't, right? So that lesson was reinterpreted for me, since sickness apparently isn't my defense against God. Anybody want to guess what my defense against God was? Busyness. Oh, sorry, Sina, were you going to guess? Is that what you were going to guess? Busyness is a defense against God. And that's a very common defense. So that's what this is referring to when it says, likewise, do not spend time in outer activities unless it is so guided by inner wisdom. You want to make sure you're not just creating your own busyness. It's amazing how much busyness we can create. So, just double check, right? Double check, is this really guidance, or is this keeping me busy so that I don't have time to spend time alone? Is this sucking up that time? Right? That's really all you have to ask. All of us, I think, are probably going to be involved in outer activities. You know, none of us are going to go into a cave and meditate 16 hours a day. I don't think. It's great if that happens for you, but I'm guessing most of us, that's not going to happen. So there will be outer activities that we know we need to participate in. That's what you want to pay attention to. You know, this is something for you to do, right? Or are you making this up for you to do? There's a subtle difference. You know, this is something for you to do. Like, I know to go spend time with my mom. I know to spend time with Ron. I know to go walk the dog. I know to go clean the house. And I know there are things that are mine to do. But, you know, what if I go volunteer for this project and go volunteer for this project and go volunteer for this project? Was that something that was mine to do, or did I create busyness? You see, you gotta check. You can feel the difference. In fact, even notice when I said, I know this is mine to do, and I was talking about my family, like, I know I'm to spend time with my mom. Notice where I'm pointing? I know I'm to spend time with Ron. I know I'm to walk the dog. I know I'm to clean the house. And then I said, but what if I go volunteer for this project? Notice where the pointing is coming from, right? I go do this. Oh, I can go do this. I can go do this. You can feel the difference. So that's what this is saying. To keep the busyness from becoming your defense against God, just make sure that the things you're doing are things that you are to do. This is yours to do. Yes, there will be things. Yes. But don't be making up things that are then eating up your time alone, right? In fact, I said to a lady the other day, she said she wanted to get together and do this hike. And I said, she's older than me, by the way, so she's been retired for a while. I said, I can do that with you. I said, I just retired, so I have some free time now. And she said, watch out what you do with that free time, which I thought was kind of funny. You know, she knows, in other words, she's actually speaking from experience, because I know a little bit about her life. She has filled up her free time with this and this and this. And she was telling me not, even though she didn't know anything about my spiritual path, she was telling me not to fill up that free time. She says, watch out what you do with that free time. She was speaking from wisdom, from having filled up her free time. You see, that's what we do. Busyness is a defense against God. Follow the guidance of inwardly. Spend a lot of time alone so that the voice of inwardly becomes clear and the center of focus. Likewise, do not spend time in outer activities unless it is so guided by inner wisdom. Or again, the way I would word that is, you know, this is yours to do, right? You just know that this is yours to do. And then stay tuned inwardly. And then, you know, still stay watching this way, watching towards yourself, practicing discernment, that kind of thing. Oh, I love this one. This is one of my favorite ones, 162. You'd think I read this every day. I love this one so much, but I don't read it every day. Number 162, first of all, in the 7 steps to awakening. Abandoning all limited concepts. Abandoning even the division between the worshiper and the worshipped. Worship the self by the self. Be at peace, pure, free from cravings. What I love is abandon the division between the worshiper and the worshipped, right? Even there's a separation. Abandoning all limited concepts, abandoning even the division between the worshiper and the worshipped. Worship the self by the self. Be at peace, pure, free from cravings. Okay, let me share with you what I wrote in my journal. This is, for me, this is one of my favorite things that I've ever written. Okay, really, I love this. Be devotion itself. Not devoted to, not devoted for, devotion itself. That's the space I get in my alone time, in my private time. And beyond that, it's unspeakable. I mean, I think I once made a video where I kind of showed people what it looked like in my devotion time. Some of you may have seen that video. You know, even though I'm writing in my journal, you know, this is the journal I'm using now. Somebody gave it to me. One of y'all gave it to me. Thank you very much, whoever did that. I've since forgotten, but I am using the journal you gave me. And as you guys know, I've been writing now for a week and a half. I just started this particular journal a week and a half ago. Oh my goodness. Okay, here's what can you see all this? This is what I've done in a week and a half. All right, a week and a half. But even when I'm doing this, when you all heard me speak on Sunday morning, remember I said my journal told me. I am actually, even though I use the language here with you, inner teacher, I'm not even using that language anymore. It's all one. I've taken away the division between the inner teacher and the student, between the worshiper and the worshipped, right? I mean, I've taken that away. When I come into this space of being alone, I simply am devotion itself. And then whatever writing comes up to write gets written, whatever meditating comes up to meditate gets meditated, you know, whatever happens out of that wholeness of devotion. And I think I've told you all before, I love it more than anything. I don't want to miss my time alone. I don't. When I get up in the morning, at, you know, typically 5, sometimes 5:30 a.m., I am excited to get my coffee and get in my chair. There's no pilling around with anything else, I assure you. I mean, I pee, I poop, and I get my coffee. That's what I do. I remember one friend said to me, you know, she saw the video of me in the morning in my devotion and said something about the fact that I don't even brush my hair. And she commented that she gets dressed and everything. She said, maybe I need to quit doing that. And you know, and I'm not going to say that it's wrong to get up and get dressed or brush your teeth or anything like that, because it, you know, that may be perfect for you. So please don't think that it's wrong. But again, check, is what I'm doing to be done because it is to be done? Or am I stalling? Right? Am I stalling? You know, using up as much time as possible before I have to go sit in that chair and become devotion itself. You know, maybe you have to go to a job and maybe it really is better for you to get that shower down, get those teeth brushed and all that. And that way you can, you know, you can sit here until you have to walk out the door. And maybe that is best for you, right? Because that's done. And now this time is free until you have to leave for work. And so maybe in your case, that's the most efficient way to do it. But in other cases, when are we just stalling? Let me just dust this first. Let me just, you know, do this. Let me put a load of laundry in first. Pretty soon that time is all eaten up. So I don't do anything. I go to the bathroom. I make coffee. I get in my chair. And I stay there as long as I possibly can. Just like I never realized this before. Just like my brother did with the basketball. Right? He came home from school, he grabbed the basketball, and he stayed out there as long as mom would let him. Probably even a little longer. She probably had to holler at him a few times. Roger, I said, get in here. That's what I do. I stay as long as I can until, well, usually my dog will start, she'll shake. I mean, it's funny, this dog doesn't bark. So when she's like, come on, it's time to go for our walk, she stands up and shakes. And when I hear her shake, I know, I got to go. I got to get up and walk the dog. But usually that's, I've been here 3 hours before that happens. So be devotion itself. Just let yourself become that, right? That's how deeply you sink into it at some point. Be devotion itself, not devoted to, not devoted for, just devotion itself. 162. We still have time, so I'm going to move on to 163. (163) in the 7 steps to awakening. Conditioning is sorrow, but conditioning is based on thoughts and notions. However, the truth is beyond such experience, and the world is an appearance like a mirage. So I don't even feel like I need to read that one again. I feel like going straight to the journal. So we'll go to number 163 and out of the stillness. There is only one thing that needs to be remembered. It is not real. That thought is not real. That opinion of how it needs to be is not real. That emotion is not real. That which I look on with these eyes is not real. That which I hear with these ears is not real. Anything that comes and goes, shifts and changes is not real. Am I giving meaning precedent as if it is real? Can I see that this meaning precedent I am giving is mistaken and the root cause of suffering? Am I willing to let go of this meaning precedent that I have given? All right, well, let's see, there's a term that I use in my journal. In step 2, but I recently read it. Let me see if I can find it here, because I think I copied it down in this journal. Here it is, core importance. Core importance. So when we identify with this body, this mind, this personality as I, when this is I, we give this core importance. And what core importance means is that we think this I is more important than anyone or anything else. That's important to look at. I don't know how many people there are in the world. Last time I checked, it was 7.5 billion. The other day I heard Jacqueline say 8 billion. Maybe it's grown up to that point or it's heading that way. You can go to that one website where you can just watch it spin as people are being born. Like, oh, it just, it goes up pretty rapidly. But let's go with Jacqueline's number since I haven't looked in a while, 8 billion. And Anne's giving me the yeah, like 8 billion sounds about right. So 8 billion people in the world, 8 billion. And I think this is most important. If you even look at that with logic, you can see that couldn't possibly be true. I think this is most important. I think these thoughts that show up in this mind are the most right. My opinions are the most right out of 8 billion. You know, contemplating that has really helped me to let go of that core importance, because it doesn't make any sense. I think the only way that we can hold on to the idea that I'm the most right person in the world is to really look at that. How can I, meaning the body, mind, personality here, how can I, just this one little I, be the most important, most right being out of 8 billion? And you know, that's how the ego sees. And so if you look at that logically, you can actually start to see that these ideas, for example, that cross this mind, they're not as right as I thought they were. And in fact, the word that's being used here is they're not real. Right? They're not real. The way I see this is not real. It's just 1 in 8 billion points of view. The way I think about this is not real. Real would be something that's true in all circumstances, never changes. That's real. There is nothing about me as a body, mind, personality, or my perceptions or my thoughts that's real. If real has to be the same always, without any change at all. And so what this is saying is just remember that. You know, when this thought shows up, you know, we're heading into pretty soon, isn't 2024 our next presidential election year? Is that right? So that would be just, so we'll be moving into that in about a year or so. And you know how crazy people get during presidential election years. And, you know, maybe you're one of them. So when those thoughts start showing up, that's not real. That's not real. If it was real, it would have to be true 100% of the time to everyone. Right? This is just a little figment of my conditioning showing up here. That thought is not real. That opinion of how it needs to be is not real. It's not real. It's just a figment of my conditioning. This emotion isn't even real. Now it's experience, but why isn't it real? It's coming from attention on a figment of my conditioning. It's made up. It's literally made up. This emotion is made up by me putting attention on a figment of my conditioning. It's not real. It's not real. That which I look on with these eyes is not real. And this is getting more metaphysical. It's like Jacqueline and I were talking about earlier today. We had a conversation. When Byron Katie woke up in 1,000 Names for Joy, that's the name of the book where it's described. She laughed when people said, that's a tree and that's the sky and have a good day. Why did she laugh? Those concepts were not in her mind. So she didn't see a tree. She didn't see a sky. She didn't know of time or a day. She only knew, there's no word for it. I'm going to say God. She only knew reality. So what we look at is actually just a concept in our mind. If we didn't have the concept, we would see like Byron Katie saw when she woke up. So that which I look at with these eyes is not real. That's actually a concept. That which I hear with these ears is not real, right? They're just concepts. I'm hearing concepts. Anything that comes and goes, shifts and changes is not real. Now, the question is, am I giving it meaning as if it is real? Am I the one doing that? Right? Am I giving it meaning as if it's important? Can I see that I'm giving it meaning? Can I see that the meaning is mistaken? It's just based on this conditioning from 1 in 8 billion points of view. Can I see that other people don't see it the way I do, or don't think about it the way I do? Can I see how meaningless this is? Can I also see that giving it meaning causes me to suffer? I'm upset about the guy that got elected, or the guy that didn't get elected, or the girl. That could happen. Because I gave a thought the precedent of reality. And then am I willing to let go of the meaning that I'm giving? And we're over time. So we're going to have to stop there. I'll be back next week. The sanctuary is open next Wednesday. Is that true, Sina? Okay, so I'll be back next week. I'll see you all then. Thanks for hanging out with me. Bye.